Hello, 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 text 1, 2, 3.
Offering mandala in requesting for the teachings. Offering mandala in requesting for the teachings. 全部son je samo shi yenbo shi kamo yi onu zani a o je se ji sa shi o zari bi a che chari ku ki ri gabo ri sa Gurum no mandala drum nirya toya going for refuge and generating bodhicitta motive. Chödan forget John so yeah chödan forget John FM, can you hear FM? The celestials and asuras and the kinars and the chief and Indra who act on the Dharma are here and explain what Buddha has told, the source of much happiness. So for the welfare of all kind medicine to live equal to the extent of space, I must attain the highest enlightenment. For that I must attain the precious food and perfect Buddhahood. For that purpose I'm here listening to sublime teachings. So in this way as the God to go towards Buddhahood, this very Bodhisattvacarya-avatara, the great text, engaging into the Bodhisattva practice. Here it's a brief expanded commentary in terms of the outline, the way to generate bodhicitta that has not been generated and not have them declined to, and then to train on the perfection of which we have completed the first part. We are now on the point of training on the remaining four perfection, training on the patient, training training on meditative concentration. This had been completed. Now we're on the training on the wisdom and regard. For this chapter there's in terms of the main outline explaining text of the chapter, page 49, and the name of the chapter, of which the first part has the three subparts, showing that those who want to attain liberation need to generate the wisdom realizing suchness. So they need to generate wisdom realizing suchness. The second part is the means of generating wisdom realizing suchness, and third, as such, instructed to strive at generating wisdom. We have finished the first part. We are on the way how to the means of generating wisdom, realizing suchness, which has three subparts: presentation of the true truth, establishing that even for someone wanting to attain mere liberation, it is necessary to realize emptiness, explaining extensively the reasoning, establishing the emptiness, of which the first part, the true truth, has two parts: the actual middle of the page 49, second text, and the second part forsaking the argument that there's no need and ability for realizing emptiness, the core. The first part has been completed. The second part, forsaking the argument that there's no need and ability for realizing, this also has two parts. The actual, then the second is the forsaking the argument that there's no need and ability for realizing emptiness. There are many subparts. We have mostly completed all of them. And here at the present time, in realizing emptiness, together with we are on the present part of the subheading. This is two parts, explaining in general and explaining in particular. And then the explaining in general part has been completed yesterday, which is the verse numbers. The verse number 34 onward. That is where we are at the moment. When a thing thought of as non-existence, not perceived at that time, how would a not truly existent thing stay before the awareness breath of a basis when anything that has been established as not truly existent, when that has been analyzed, then the thing that is to be analyzed, that being not existent, that very subject and the nature of the entity of suchness about that object at that time upon the basis that is devoid of emptiness, that is the non-existence as truly existent. That so this is going to the verse 34. In both of them that would not be before. So that is as has been refuted earlier. And the next verse 34, when a thing and not truly existent thing do not stay before the awareness at that time, since there is no other aspect, all elaborations reject the thing under the examination, and not truly existent, that is the emptiness upon the thing, when the object to be negated has been refuted. Both of these, the thing and the not truly existent about it, in the awareness that realizes emptiness directly to that awareness, these are not truly existent. Anyway, the object that is the basis for emptiness to be established, and emptiness then and emptiness itself, both of them are not even in particular existent. Then when that is presented, then with regards to other appearances, any other aspects of the object when negated do not appear to the mind. Therefore, the next line, at that time, since there's no other aspect, all elaboration fully subside without a focus object. Focus object is where you consider as in the nature of thing to be negated, thing to be, so the manner of grasping and object focus object, same meaning. So this it is without all elaboration. So the awareness, the realized emptiness, it is described as the mind free of elaboration or devoid of elaboration. So that mind which realized emptiness being described as devoid of elaboration. Why that is being described so is because upon the object examination, whatever you have long time with innate ego grasping or innate mind that you have, whether you have fabricated about the object, all those fabrications subside, then that becomes free of elaboration. That is what it means. Such as omniscient mind of the Buddha, or the mind that is in equipoise or emptiness. With regards to such a mind, both the object and the subject, there is not any elaboration into dualism, so that is a valid or qualified free of elaboration. So such a direct awareness, realizing, even if you have not come to the direct realization of emptiness, but if you are on the level of realizing emptiness in the aspect of meaning, generality, like the inference of realizing emptiness in the aspect of wisdom, reason from meditative familiarization with all of them, what is basically what is to the appearance aspect and what is to the essence aspect. With regards to the inference realizing emptiness, there are two objects that is in the aspect of the appearance. So upon the object, there is the appearance as a truly existent, but in the ascertain aspect of the mind, there is no truly existence as thinking is truly existent. Therefore, there is the all elaboration fully subside would be described about such a mind, which even realizes emptiness through inference in the meaning generality aspect. That mind also would be free of dualism. So by familiarizing with the wisdom realizing emptiness, the entire afflictions or the negative emotion together with their imprint. Now with regards to the imprint of the affliction. You can take the meaning of the imprint as the normal meaning of imprint, and also you can take the meaning of imprint as the subtle seed of. So with regards to these imprint, they can be both of the electric obscuration and of the obscuration to omniscience. So these both obscuration can be repelled and removed by wisdom realizing emptiness. So then the remaining, the other verses that follows thereafter is that through realizing emptiness there will be excellent result to be achieved. So that is the third part. Showing the outcome of the excellent result of having eschewed afflictions and then praying. So where it has come about is this outline. Forsaking the thrust at Madhyamika that there is no need for the ability of the path of realizing emptiness. There's the argument, and then there's a rejoinder. And the rejoinder has a three-part. The reason attachment arises in the illusion created first, and second, showing that it is feasible to eschew afflictions and the imprint by having meditatively familiarized with the wisdom realizing emptiness. Then the third we are on, which is the showing the outcome of the excellent result of having eschewed afflictions and their imprint. So this part also has two parts, two subparts. Although there's no conceptual thought, fulfilling of trainees' aspiration is feasible, and the analogy for that and for second argument in the middle of the page 52, second text. So for the first part, although there's no conceptual thought, that if Buddha's mind has no conceptual thought at all, then because Buddha would not have the intention to give teaching, therefore the Buddha to be giving teaching and doing benevolent activities for sentient beings would not be feasible. This is the argument put forth by the other side. In Buddhahood, that there is no conceptual thoughts. Anyway, what is direct realization? There's only direct realization, direct perception, but other than that, conceptual thought and what is not direct perception, reflection, the meaning generality or the sound generality, such thought and perception is not there within Buddhahood, because the mind has ceased. Some tenets say that in Buddhahood there's no mind. There's such a context where there's such a description about the Buddha's mind, and here in the Bodhisattvacarya-avatara, that there's perhaps the same wording that there is a cessation of the mind and that there's no mind. Normally we, the dialecticians, when we speak in order through our mouth and we use the language, conceptual thoughts and the conceptual thought and non-conceptual thought, to differentiate between the two is done very easily. Then your mental continuum, that is perfectly, if you examine your own mind, to be making difference between what is conceptual thought and what is not conceptual thought is very difficult to make. For example, with the state of Buddhahood, that there's no conceptual thought, how you could present that would be difficult. For example, if there's no conceptual thought in Buddhahood, then there is no bodhicitta, there's no great compassion. Great compassion is the thought wanting others to be free of their sufferings. So that mind wanting others to be free of their sufferings, that it is not in the aspect of the conceptual thought. So this is how it is to be understood. But so the other side says, if the Buddha, who does not even have the intention and the thought, thinking that I will give teachings to the trainees, that it is that there's nowhere mentioned that the Buddha has the intention to give teaching. Therefore, Tathagata stayed in the aspect, in the presentation of the mind and awareness, and this is something inconceivable. We cannot think, we cannot conceive about Buddha's mind and its aspect. And also when a Buddha appears in the aspect of the supreme emanation in the ordinary world, and what is normally ordinary people generating bodhicitta, and then there's the other aspect generating bodhicitta of the beyond, and then aspect of what Buddha thinks. Even the animals would know that there is such a context, and when the Buddha thinks of something beyond this life, beyond about the mundane, only amongst Buddha themselves would know that thought. Even the bodhisattvas on the ground would not know what Buddha is thinking. So when Buddha thinks about something in parallel to the mundane, then the humans or celestials and the kumbandans and other non-humans, whatever Buddha thinks, what is in Buddha's thought, the entourage would be able to know, even if there are celestials, the non-humans and the humans. Therefore, the very flow of the mind at the state of Buddhahood is something that from our perspective at present time, from our perspective, it's something we cannot be able to think and cannot be expressed through our mind. I think it is difficult to do so. At Buddhahood, their old conceptual thoughts have subsided. Another point of view, the way of explaining is, without preceded by the movement of intention that Buddha's activities are done effortlessly, spontaneously, that is the Tathagata's activities or the Buddha's benevolent activities are done without effort and spontaneously, and there is no preceding intention to go before, to first precede. Even those who believe in a creator of the universe, when the creator creates the universe, there is the assertion that the creator first thinks about creating, but we Buddhists do not even assert that Tathagatas need to be thinking beforehand with intention and not with thinking that question doesn't arise, that there is no effort, but there's no effort and things are accomplished spontaneously, then there is no effort needed to be put. That having Buddhahood, having perfected in the perfection of diligence, that very mind perfected in diligence, whether it is effort or not, this is something one can examine and research. So the next one, just verse 36, just as a wish-fulfilling gem and thought knowing tree fulfills hopes and so forth. In Buddhahood, that there is all conceptual thought subsided, therefore the thought thinking to do sentient beings' welfare, even though there's no conceptual thought thinking like that, but still a Buddha is able to engage in fulfilling sentient beings' welfare is through the example wish-fulfilling gem and with the thorn-knowing tree. There's two examples given. Wish-fulfilling gem is something we have not actually seen, but in our text there's such a mention of such a kind of a gem. It is called the thought-enhancing gem. It is called the gem that bestows all aspiration. There are such different names given to such a gem. So in some sutras or discourse of the Buddha, these kinds of gems give bestow aspiration. You have to first clear wash the gem 3 times and then wipe 3 times and place such a gem on top of the victory marking banner. So anyway, wish-fulfilling gem is like, as Tsongkhapa says, this human rebirth is far more superior to wish-fulfilling gem. So whatever people aspire, if they pray to such a gem, their wishes will be fulfilled. Then another example, that is thought-knowing tree, is of the same meaning. Thought-knowing means in our Tibetan language, it is the beauty of the Tibetan language. If there were no such word, then to be in the Sanskrit language, it is like the concept, the tree of conceptual thought. That is literally kalpavrikshi in Sanskrit. So with regard to that, mostly such a tree is enjoyed by the celestial beings. All around the southern continent, Jambu continent. So the fruit of such thorn-knowing trees falls into the ocean, and the sound produces yam. That is how the wood gets its name. There is such a legend, so such is the reference to thought-knowing tree. Both wish-fulfilling gem and thought-knowing tree are inanimate things that has no mind. They are inanimate things, and for that the people's aspiration would be fulfilled if people pray to them. Although the wish-fulfilling gem and the thought-knowing tree doesn't have the intention to fulfill the people's aspiration, but still their aspiration get fulfilled by these three things. So if people pray to these things, those who want clothing, they would be given food. Those who want drink, they would give him drink to remove thirst. Those who want food, they would be bestowed food. Whatever they want would be bestowed. Therefore, wish fulfilling gem and thought knowing tree. Even though they do not have conceptual thought, they fulfill the aspiration of the people. So like that example, verse number 36, going to 83, the trainees' welfare, the welfare of the sentient beings, how it is getting fulfilled is through the prayers, the third line prayers, with regards to the Buddha, when the Buddhas were training on the path as a Bodhisattva, the prayers they have done, specifically Bodhisattvas had done 12,200 prayers and the prayers of the 7 medicine Tathagatas and so forth. There are some special prayers when, as a Bodhisattva, the Buddha to be would have done such prayers, and also each sentient being individually would have done their own prayer. There is so when they wish for, when the whatever is in the Abhisamalankara, the mind, which means when the sentient being's mind state becomes ripened, then the Buddha's activities becomes ready to receive a sentient being. Then to whichever sentient being, whatever is needed, Buddha appears according to the trainees, through the power of the prayer, the Buddha's body, in the aspect of the supreme emanation, in the aspect of the birth emanation, in the aspect of the crafts person emanation, these varieties of emanation, manifestation would appear in that. If you are a superior bodhisattva, you would see Buddha in the aspect of the complete enjoyment body, although Buddha do not have conceptual thought, but the Buddha's benevolent activities would spontaneously, without effort, would enter or be received by the sentient being. There's no reason that would not happen so. Then here, with regards to the argument, by the other side here in these verses, in the commentarial text, there is mentioned that these part of the verses are the calm and the argument by other, but in the actual wording of the verses here, there's nothing clear to differentiate between the two. When the verses are understood and then commented upon by the great commentators, then they differentiate the verse lines, some parts being the argument, some being the response. So the Bodhisattva, during the time of training the path, they have done prayer, and since that time prayer has so long duration has elapsed for such a prayer that have been done long time ago, even at the present time, that the fruits have become ripened and the Buddhas to be engaged in sentient beings' welfare. This is not why. This is what the other puts at the argument. Then the other thing is Bodhisattva's prayers result. How could it become the result during as a Buddha? This is infeasible. That the Bodhisattva's prayers result during the time of training on the path as Bodhisattva, it could ripen, but as a Buddha, there's nothing, it is not feasible. This is what the other side, it is a consequential result. Then one can say in Buddhahood there's no consequential result, but general presentation of the causal effect, there's nothing wrong in saying that still is feasible with the Buddhahood. But anyway, the other side's argument is that the Buddha's activities would not be possible, even though there was a prayer as a Bodhisattva earlier, because they were two different persons. Then the next part is, for example, verse number 37. For example, a priest having achieved Garuda worship trunk, the priest has died, yet even after long duration since the death, the trunk eliminates poison and so on. Likewise, also with achieving victorious one's worship trunk by following accordingly the Bodhisattva practice, even when the Bodhisattva has passed away, all welfares are carried out. Bodhisattva who had done the prayer, that Bodhisattva has passed away, and all the Bodhisattva who did the prayer, when that Bodhisattva has attained the Buddhahood, and in between long duration elapsed, but during the time as a trainee, as a Bodhisattva, the prayer done does not become wasted, that the prayers would become fulfilled, would produce result. And the result, as an example for that, in the southern India, in the city Triya. There is one city or the town by that name, Triya, and there was a Brahmin, a priest. There were 7 brothers, Brahmin or priest brothers, and these 7 brothers, they were eaten by the Naga serpent. So the Nagas are in the aspect of the snakes. So these Nagas, in the aspect of the snake, they ate this 6 of the 7 brothers, and the last who was most protected, but still later, eventually was eaten by a snake, and later in the ocean, and they were in the ship. There's a long story, we need not go into that. But through the power of the mantra, the child got revived back into life, and so there is then the child learning the antidote mantra for serpent, which is the Garuda worship trunk. That is the name of the charm, or that we have in the secret mantra context, in the aspect of the deity, the Garuda roaring present consciousness. So there is such a deity of that name in our, which one can practice and accomplish to be perfected in practice, even in terms of animals. Most of the snake species are very much killed by the Garuda, even though Garuda is something that no one has seen, but Garuda is the very opponent of the serpents or the snakes. So both are, so they are like the opponents. So such a Garuda worship trend that youngest son is to accomplish the mantra called Garuda worship trunk. So this is like a long, like a pillar, and on top of that there was the shape of a Garuda, and for a long time the youngest of the 7 brothers did for a long time mantra recitation and accomplishing of the realization of the Garuda trunk, worship trunk. So he made a trunk or pillar, and then the priest who did the Brahmin, the youngest brother who accomplished and made the trunk, afterward he died, but still at the time of Shanti was writing of the text, but later, after some time, when the child has died, but still those who have the power of the mind, if they did the circumambulation of the trunk, they get protected and healed from snake bite and so forth. So that is the meaning. So here, for example, has died, yet even after long duration, the priest who has accomplished the Garuda worship trunk, but that very trunk or the pillar that is the second reference, even in later times, verse 37, the venom of the snake and the venom of the serpents, the nagas, they are eliminated. Like that example, the Bodhisattvas, verse number 38, together with the Bodhisattva practices, they have achieved the Buddhahood, which is here metaphorically given as the worship trunk. So although the Bodhisattva who accomplished the worship trunk has passed away, but for which purpose that worship trunk is accomplished and made, that worship trunk would still fulfill the welfare of sentient beings. Through the power of the prayer, that is where we have come from. Verse number 36. Then the next part, the forsaking argument against that. Although there is no conceptual thought, the sentient beings' wishes will fulfill. So then what argument there is that verse number 39, how could they be themselves by offering to the mind in Buddhahood? There's no conceptual thought. If that is the case, then that mindless state of the Buddhahood is like similar to inanimate thing. By giving or by making offerings to something inanimate, how could they ever sell? This is the argument by the other side. the elaboration by the mind having ceased and the mind being seized without differentiating these two. The other side thinks of that they think that if there is no elaboration of the concept of thought in Buddhahood, then there would not be mind. This is what the other side thinks. In many Indian texts, there is the wording mindless, that in Buddhahood there is no mind. There have been many such occasions where this word appears in Indian text. Therefore, there have been, even among Tibetans, earlier commentators and text writers, they have the concept that there's no mind in Buddhahood. But they say if there is no mind in Buddhahood, then there would be no mind that receives the offering and so forth. And as a counter response to that, the next issue, there's no fallacy, which is verse number 39, line 3 and 4, for it has been said as the same alive or demised. So what that part means, whether Buddha is alive, to be offering to the Tathagata, to the Buddha, and the time Buddha has passed away, and to that Buddha, to that Tathagata, to be still making offerings. How can you make offering to a Buddha that has passed away? You can do so by making offering to Buddha's relics, to the Buddha's bodily remains, to the Buddha's robes, to the stupa repository of the remains of Buddha's body, and so forth. So these is both to a Buddha alive or Buddha demise, the merit is equal. This is what Buddha has actually said, that there's an equal merit. Where it has been said is in the Maitreya Lion's Road discourse, Maitreya Simhanada Sutra, normally in the Vinaya Agaman and in many other discourses of Buddha, Buddha said in the stupa or Buddha's relics, and to Buddha's hairs, and to Buddha's robes, and to Buddha's stupas, if you do offerings, you would be offering to a Buddha alive, and there will be equal benefit. There are many sutras and discourses Buddha has mentioned, and here the particular sutra being cited is the Maitreya Lion's Road, Maitreya Simhananda Sutra, and also in the sutra, in the benefit of the circumambulating stupas, says whoever worships with pure mind the present alive, or even a bodily relic of one demise, there's no difference with the married. It's put note number 533, page 126 of first text, with the Buddha to the remain to the Buddha passed away, and the relinquish of Buddha to making offering, and to a Buddha alive to making offering. There's no difference if one offers with a pure mind. Both would accrue same merit. With the stupas where of a Buddha passed away, there's no mind, then the very awareness of mind accepting the offering, but still that doesn't mean there would not be benefit in making the offerings. So after that is be it, so establishing, be it verse number 40, be it in the conventional or also in such things the results of that mentioned in the words. For example, it is as how there would be result with the truly existent Buddha making offerings to a Buddha, if whether it is in the conventional or whether it is in reality or suchness, ultimate reality or suchness. Whichever perspective one may apply, whether in terms of conventional or whether in terms of the ultimate truth, whichever of these contexts, when you do making offering, that there will be a result. This is what Buddha has said in Buddha's own words in the sutras. So this is, there are many discourses that are cited in support of that. Then what is being said to them? For example, it is as how there would be result with a truly existent Buddha. You to a Buddha that is truly existent, this is what you, the other side, assert. So such a truly existent Buddha, if you make offering, you assert that there will be a result of merit. So like that, here we, the middle view proponent, we also what we assert is a mere name imputed Buddha that has no consideration at all. To that Buddha, if you make offering, and on the other side, which you assert a Buddha to be truly existent, to both of them, by making offering, there's no difference in making of the offering. The meaning of this part is, in the conventional and in the sectional, leaving aside, examining whether it is true or whether it is false, meaning the Buddhahood, whether it's truly existent or not truly existent, but to make an offering to Buddha, and as a result, there would be a result equal to the material being offered. That would be okay. That by making offering, that there would be a result for the purpose of accumulating collections of merits, and for that, the nature of the Buddha itself, whether it exists inherently or doesn't exist inherently, need not be the focus of examination. There's no need to examine. So this is like a sarcastic counter response given to the other side. Verse number 40. Then the second part, adding is establishing that even for someone wanting to attain mere liberation, it is necessary to realize emptiness. This has two-part argument and rejoinder. Verse number 41, the top subheading part of that. And the first is establishing that even for someone wanting to attain mere liberation, to necessary to realize, this comes from that wisdom, realizing suchness should be generated, and how to do that, and there are the instruction for that. There are these three parts, and we are on the second part of that, of the early outlines. With the wisdom realizing suchness, the mean for this has three parts: the presentation of the true truth, and even those wanting to attain Buddhahood has to have necessary to realize emptiness, and explaining extensively the reasoning establishing emptiness. These three. The first part, the true truth, has been completed. Looking at the page 49 of the second text, and we are on the second. establishing that even for someone wanting to attain mere liberation, it is necessary to realize emptiness, so that part. This is for the fear of the hearers and solitary realizer must realize they have lesser phenomena. If they do not, then they would not attain liberation. This is in accordance with the uncommon Sangika Madhyamika's viewpoint that to attain omniscience, it goes without mention that one needs to realize emptiness. And even those who wanting to attain mere liberation, it is necessary to realize emptiness. This is that part. Verse page 52, middle part. This is two-part argument, and second is the rejoinder. First is the argument part. What the materialist, the realist, what they say, verse number 40, verse number 41. By seeing the truth, one would become liberated. What would seeing emptiness do? Here, the truth refers to the 16 aspects of Four Truth. The Four Truth, the 16 aspect, impermanence, so forth. If you familiarize with that in your meditation, and if you are able to see the truth of that, then you become arahant, you become liberated from samsara. Therefore, there's no need for seeing emptiness, which so this is what the realist, the materialist bring the argument. And then that is the argument part. Now the response part is, it has three subparts. Establishing that the wisdom realizing emptiness verily is the path for becoming liberated from the mundane existence. That alone, verily means alone, that apart from wisdom realizing emptiness, there's no path to become liberated. Now, halfway down the page 52 of the second text. So even to the arahants, to Buddhahood, even to attain nirvana, that doesn't abide on the extreme of the mundane peace. One needs to realize emptiness, and the third part is as such instructed that it is right that those seeking liberation meditate on emptiness. And then the first part is establishing that wisdom realizing emptiness rarely is the path for becoming liberated from mundane existence. This has two subparts. Firstly, establishing through citation that the great vehicle sutras and the words of the Buddha, establishing through reasoning these two subparts. And here what is to be established is that the very wisdom realizing emptiness is the path for attaining the liberation, and this is established through both the citation, the words of the Buddha. Established through recitation, what it means is the wisdom realizing emptiness, that it is the path to become liberated from samsara. It is nothing very hidden field of knowledge. One doesn't need to establish through citation of Buddha's word, that being so. But here the very meaning of establishing through citation is what we normally, when we debate, we do not apply citation of Buddha's words for everything that needs, that is, for everything that is not hidden field of knowledge. Even for a small point of a thesis, there would be occasion when the citations are cited from the text and words of Buddha. Likewise, the wisdom realizing emptiness being the path to become liberated from samsara has been taught by the Buddha. This is what is being mentioned here by establishing citation. So here what we need to differentiate between, in detail, whatever is hidden, that is very hidden fields of knowledge, that is one through the citation, that is the validity by three validities, not through that, and that is said so or taught by the Buddha. The reason why the Buddha's words are being quoted here, if the question is that, then if you cite Buddha's word, then the other side to be saying, I can't accept this citation because this is the words of Buddha according to your great vehicle sutra, not of our. So if there is such a possibility of the other side saying, then there will be the occasion for you to counter by saying that the teachings of the great vehicle are genuine teaching of the Buddha. Then the next verse, which is for in the world it has been said, without this power enlightenment wouldn't be, verse 30, verse 41, line 3 and 4. So when the other side says that by seeing the truth, the four truths, 16 aspects, one would become liberated, then what would seeing emptiness do? The verse line 1 and 2 of verse 41. When that argument is put, then the response, the rejoinder given is that in the perfect wisdom sutras, Buddha has said that without the power realizing emptiness, there would not be any enlightenment of any of the three paths. So in the enlightenment, here is the enlightenment of the hearer, enlightenment of the solitary realizer, enlightenment of the Bodhisattva, of the great vehicle context. So this is what Buddha has said, for in the words it has been said, without this path, enlightenment wouldn't be, verse 41, line 3 and 4. This very citation in the Panchakarama's commentary, the citation is referred to the Buddha's teaching on perfection wisdom sutras of those categories. Of course, in the teachings of the Buddha, that there is the realization of the selflessness of the phenomena by hearers and sort of realize that there are many sutras, but here the special sutra being mentioned is that of Buddha's teaching on perfection wisdom. So these two lines, the commentary says that this is in order to establish that in some hearers and solitary realizers, there may not be necessary to realize some lessons of phenomena, but that is not so. Then the second, through reasoning of the same, establishing through reasoning, the reasoning of the sameness, that is what reasoning the other side put. You reverse that back, the reasoning put by the other side, you turn it around and put the reasoning back. Then the reasoning of the reality, that is not reasoning of the sameness, but new reasoning. So these two reasonings are produced. So here onward is establishing of the great vehicle as the genuine teachings of the Buddha's word. Before Nagarjuna's time, after Buddha has passed away, there had been first and second compilation council of Buddha's word. After those times, the sutras of the great vehicle were perhaps not to be seen in India. They became extinct at that time. The great vehicle sutras equal to the other sutras. During the first council, there were some who accept and some do not accept, and some they said these great vehicle teachings were compiled during the first council. Some say they weren't compiled, and those in the Grigakuta Vulture's Peak and in the land of 33, the Bodhisattvas had compiled the Buddha's teachings on the great vehicle by Manjushri, by Maitreya, and by Vajrapani. They compiled the Buddha's teaching of great vehicle. This is what great vehicle assertion is about, the compilation of Buddha's teaching of great vehicle categories there. Because of this, doing so with Nagarjuna, with the great vehicle sutras, when Nagarjuna made them flourishing again, then there were some who say that these teachings were not the genuine words of the Buddha, and those who rejected that were mostly the materialist schools and so forth. Therefore, in many texts, there is the establishment of the great vehicle teaching, Buddha's teaching. In many texts, it is in the most extensive one is in the establishment of the great vehicle teaching. In the Tarka Jwala Bhaviveka, Blaze reasoning, there are many such reasoning established there in that text, proving great vehicle teaching to be the genuine words of Buddha. And here also in the present text, in the verse onward, Chandideva's time, although a lot of time it had elapsed, but still at that time there were those who were of the opinion that great vehicle teachings were not the genuine teaching of the Buddha. Therefore, Shantideva here onwards touches on this point. Even these days, there are many who, there is not that there aren't any, there are people who reject great vehicle teachings as not Buddha's teaching. When we first arrived in India, there were many we came across who rejected great vehicle teaching as Buddha's teaching, and those who, the Pandit, the Indian learned, they quote some words from Buddha's words, and then on that basis there had been elaboration by the later masters, and then the great vehicle teachings where texts were written later on. There are people bringing such opinion, especially with the Vedas. There are many several Vedas, and from Vedas there had been influence from the Vedas. There were some people who were of that opinion. Therefore, for a long time there had been a need to establish great vehicle teaching to be general teaching of the Buddha. Then actually, verse 42, if the great vehicle wasn't established, how would your citation be established? Because this has been established for both. At first this wasn't established to you. The factors by which you believe in them, that applies same to the great vehicle. So these verses are very terse verse, very terse verse. So when you comment and explain these verses, you need to add on many other words of clarification. Otherwise, by their wording itself, the verses are not clear. So then, so when this is mentioned that for in the words it has been said without this part, in other words, wouldn't be, then as a counter comes, the other part says that the great vehicle sutras are not the teaching of the Buddha, therefore I would not accept great vehicle sutra. Therefore, how would you establish something that I don't accept to be the Buddha's words? This is the verse number 42, line 1 and 3. If the great vehicle wasn't established, how would your citation be established? I do not accept great vehicle teaching. Therefore, for you to cite the teachings of the Buddha of the great vehicle, that to attain the enlightenment of the three vehicles, you need to realize emptiness. This I cannot. This you cannot establish to me by citing your own great vehicle sutras. This is what the other side says in the verse number 42, line 1 and 3. Then in response to that, verse number 42, line 4, at first this wasn't established to you. At first this wasn't established to you. The factors by which you believe in them applies to the other side, saying that if you cite great vehicle sutra, this would not be applicable to me. Then the Shantideva says back that you accept to be genuine words of Buddha, such as the sutras or the Pratipitakas of the lower vehicle. How would you establish them to be genuine words of the Buddha? This is the question put back to them. With great vehicle, if the great vehicle wasn't established, verse 42, line 1 and 3. So after that, then these verses, verse 42, line 1 and 3 onward, and so these are being established if the great vehicle sutras and perfection wisdom sutras and so forth, if these are not established to be the great vehicle, how would your citation be established? Would you accept the great vehicle teachings, such as the four categories of Trivanaya and how would you establish that to the Buddha's word? This is the question put back to it. If the great vehicle wasn't established, how would your citation be established? Because this has been established for both. So the other side, what other side says is for what reason the lower vehicle, of the common vehicle, many sutras of that category that are not being rejected by the great vehicle, because this has been established for both great vehicle and lower vehicle followers, what they commonly accept to be genuine Buddha's words, which are of the category of the lower vehicle sutras. So, the lower vehicle Pratipitaka teachings are established as Buddha's words. If that is, then the response for that is verse 42, line 4. At first, this wasn't established to you. What you have said to me And what I say to you is exactly the same. What you're saying is what I accept, what I say to you. From the very beginning, the lower vehicle teachings to be genuine words of the Buddha, you have not understood that yourself. Afterwards, by accepting the words to be genuine words of the Buddha, there have been factors. At first, this wasn't established to you, the factors by which you believe in them, the factors by which the lower vehicle teaching to be the Buddha's words that you assert to be so. With the so what is what appears, what is given in the in the Vinaya, and what is to be entered in the sutras, and what is not contradictory to the Abhidharma. So through this is what you present as the reason that the lower vehicle teachings, when you establish them to be Buddha's word, the way you establish them, you say these are permitted in the Vinaya, that they are to be entered into Sutra, and they do not contradict in the Abhidharma. This is the reason you place to show the training of morality. It must not be against the teaching in Vinaya, and training on the mind, it must not contradict with the Sutra Pitaka, and to train on wisdom, it must not contradict with the teaching by Buddha in the Abhidharma. Therefore, you accept on that basis to be the genuine words of the Buddha. So you, by these factors, you believe them to be Buddha's word. This applies the same to the great vehicle. That very reasoning, verse 43, line 1 and 2, this very applies to the great vehicle sutras. With the great vehicle sutras, that in the Vinaya they have been permitted, that they are applicable to the sutra, and they do not contradict with the Abhidharma. This in your citation that you present as the valid reasoning, this would apply the same to our great vehicle sutras. So this applies the same to the great vehicle, line 2 of the verse 43, page 127, text 1. So the explanation of the wording of the verse here, I'm not sure whether you have understood very ascertainedly. If the great vehicle citations are not established to the Buddha's word, then what you accept to be the common vehicle sutras, how could you establish that to Buddha's word? That is the question put back. And as a response to that, both are established, has been established for both, that the lower vehicle sutras are accepted by the great vehicle followers to be the genuine words of Buddha. So both great vehicle and lower vehicle, those lower vehicle sutras are considered to be genuine words of Buddha. So this is about. Then in response, at first this wasn't established to. So first, the lower vehicle sutra to be Buddha's word is not established to you yourself in the very beginning, but later, by understanding the meaning of the three headings and applying to the three Pitakas, you have come to understand that lower vehicle teaching to the genuine words of Buddha, to have believed in that. This very way of approaching and producing belief in the genuine words of Buddha through that measure would apply the same to our great vehicle sutras. This is to explain. Then the next is the verse 43, line 3 and 4. If assertion by two others makes something true, then Vedas and so on would be true. So what the other side say in response is, they would apply the same to the assertion by two others make something true. The lower vehicle sutras being genuine words of the Buddha, we both accept that. It's accepted by the great vehicle followers, and it's accepted by the lower vehicle followers. So this, both sides accept that to be so, because that reasoning that it is the genuine words of the Buddha, if that is the basis, then the Vedas, the non-Buddhist teachings of Vedas would too become genuine teachings, would become, because for them there are two, three, four tenets accept them to be true, because if any true person accepts something to be true, then that would mean the non-Buddhist teachings such as of the Vedas would be considered to be true. This is the form become. Then in response, for the great vehicle is debatable. If the lower vehicle teaches sutras, and there's no debate that they are Buddhist teaching, both vehicle accept that, but because great vehicle sutras are debatable, so it is a point of debate, therefore it cannot be accepted very easily. For the great vehicle is debatable. This is what is being said. If that is so, then the response. Then in your citation with the non-Buddhist, the raisers, and also regarding other words, so they are to be discarded. Verse 44, line 2 and 4. In your system, it would become debatable. If something is debatable, then you cannot accept the Buddha's word. Then you can apply the same to those non-Buddhist raisers, and regarding other words of the Buddha, such as with great vehicle teaching of the Buddha, if there are point debate between the lower and great vehicle, if anything that is debatable, it needs to be discarded, would be rejected, then this would apply same as if you are considering great vehicle teaching are those of the teaching of the non-Buddhists, the raisers. Criticus, the raisers. So unlike other chapters or verses, the verses of the 9th chapter, in very few words, so many things are contained. So when the explanation of the words are given, so many other words need to be added, and sometimes in between there are the qualms, and there's a link made to be understood. So there are additional many things to be said along when commenting and explaining these verses, which are very terse of the chapter 9. So with other words, among the 18 Vibhashika sub-tenets, those teachings of the Buddha also would be a point of controversy. Among the 18 sub-tenets of Vibhashika, there are some who accept the intermediate state, some do not accept the intermediate state, and those who accept intermediate state to be existent, that those such teachings, then they become debatable to those who do not accept. Then that also, so this so far is the reasoning of the sameness. Then the second is the establishing through the reasoning of reality. So this has also 4 sub-parts. Page number 53, showing that it would be impossible to turn out of state if one lacks the wisdom, realizing emptiness, and so on. Number 4, showing that as such, even those aspiring mere liberation need to meditate on emptiness. So the bottom of the page 52, second text, reasoning reality, going to page 53, what it establishes is this reasoning of reality. It doesn't mean that the great vehicle teaching is to be established as a great Buddha's word, but rather it says that if one lacks the wisdom of realizing emptiness, it will be impossible to attain arahat and nirvana. This is one part. And the thrust that if arahat state is attained merely by meditating on the 16 impermanence so forth, then it will be attained also by merely eschewing the manifest afflictions, the second part. Then third is refuting the rejoinder to that, and after that the fourth subheading is that showing that as such, even those aspiring mere liberation means the liberation of the hearers and solitary realizers. That is referred to. Then the first is showing that it would be impossible to attain arhat state if one lacks wisdom realizing emptiness. Verse number 45. When bhikkhus are the roots for teaching to continue, it will be difficult to also establish the validity of bhikkhus. Now, with regards to the word bhikkhu or the virtue adopted, mostly these days, mainly those who have received the full ordination vows, so such are called as a bhikshu. So here, with regards to the word bhikshu, so with regards to the variety of the mention of the words bhikshus here, with the word bhikshu, it refers to the arahants. So if when bhikshus are the roots of the teaching to continue, it will be difficult to also establish the validity of the bhikshus. So here there must be a reason why the word bhikshu is used instead, whereas it in actuality means dachum or the arahant. If you use the word arahant, it would be much easier to give commentary on these two lines. When bhikshus are the roots for the teaching to continue, what this part means is that it refers to the arahants. What all commentators say is, though the arahant having listening teaching from Buddha directly, and thereafter they compile the teachings of the Buddha. When Buddha actually appeared, the arahant who had the power of non-forgetting, retention, memory, then later when Buddha passed away, the arahants get together and they compile the words of the Buddha. So the root of the teaching is the arahants, those who have destroyed their mental affections. So such a bhikshu, the arahants, are difficult to find. It will be difficult to establish the validity of bhikshus. The bhikshu arahant will be difficult to find. Why it would be difficult to establish, to find is because with the wisdom realizing emptiness, they do not realize wisdom realizing emptiness according to you. So according to the Gyuto scripture, if they put in the syllogism, the arahant of the lawmaker, be the examination, they do not attain the state of arahant because they do not pursue the path realizing emptiness. This is the way to establish that it would be impossible to attain arahant state of one lack the wisdom realizing emptiness. It will be difficult also. So the word also here also include Buddhas. Not only Buddha, even the arahant would be difficult to attain. Then the next lines, it will be difficult to establish nirvana as well for those with the mind with a focused object. If the mind with the truly, if the mind has for persons who have the mind with the truly existent dualism, it will be difficult to be attaining nirvana. The arahant of the hearer and the solitary realizer's path. For them to attain nirvana would be difficult because your nirvana would not be visible because your mind is with the focus object of truly existent, because you still have grasping at the things as truly existent. So this is what is mentioned there. It will be difficult to establish nirvana as well for those in the mind with their focus. Although the Buddha's teaching is the bhikshu, root of Buddha's teaching is the bhikshu arahant, because those hearers and also realizers, they do not take the path of wisdom, realize emptiness. Therefore, of those with the mind with the focus object, with the focus object means those who still has the focus object of grasping at true existence, they cannot attain nirvana. So that is the thrust put back to them. Then in response, that the wisdom realizing emptiness is not necessary. The other side says among the 16 aspects of the Four Truths, impermanence. So what if you realize that, you would attain Arahant. If that is the then merely to have abandoned the manifest afflictions, you would attain Arahant state. So that is the thrust. If one becomes liberated by abandoning affliction, then immediately thereafter one would become the verse 46 here. Abandoning affliction does not refer to the abandoning root or the seed of the affliction, not in that sense, but rather by realizing the 16 aspects of the Four Truths, where you have abandoned or get rid of the manifest afflictions, and through that, if you attain Arahant, then after you have, in that case, then by merely for time being removing the manifest afflictions, you would immediately straight away attain the state of Arahanthood through the path of the 16 aspects of the Four Truths. So these two apply the same in all ways. That if you say that without realizing emptiness, but through realizing the 16 aspects of Four Truths, you would attain liberation, then the question put back is then by merely abandoning the manifest affliction, you should immediately become Arahant. So this, in the dialectical language, what it means is it is the Arahant presented in the Abhidharma. The Arahant in the Abhidharma context is the Arahant who have realized the 16 aspects of Four Truths, then attain Arahant. That context, that Arahant state is subject to decline. So through the path of the impermanence of 16 aspects, through that there are among the 4 aspects of the true suffering. There's the impermanence, miserable, and emptiness, and the selfness. There are those 4 aspects, but here the selfless is with regards to the selflessness of person and of phenomena between these 2 types of selflessness. That selflessness does not include in these 2. In the Prasangika, in the lower vehicle context, the selflessness of person and that phenomena become 2 separate. Whereas in the Prasangika Madhyamika, in terms of things to be negated, there's no difference. But in terms of the basis of negation of the object of fruition, then there's different than where the true existence is negated upon a person becomes a self-less person, and the negation of the true existence on the basis of the person, aggregate and so forth, are the self-lessness of phenomena. Therefore, mere negation of the self that is true, single and independent, that does not become the meaning of the true self-lessness of person. So both of these, whatever context understanding you take the meaning with regard, no need to go into the details of whether you realize the selflessness of a person devoid of permanence, single, and independence. So that does not help you to get rid of the innate ego-grasping at self-identity. Therefore, these with the 16 aspect of the Four Truths, if you realize, then you are only able to get rid, for the time being, you are able to suppress the manifest affliction. You are not able to remove the affliction from the root, from the seed. That is not happening. Therefore, the Arahant in those lower vehicle contexts, in their perspective and by realizing the 16 aspect of the Four Truths, when they attain the state of the abandoning the affliction, at that time, would it be the case that they have attained Arahant state? If they assert to be so, then they would have to accept that counter thrust, but they cannot accept that. The reason why they cannot accept that is because such manifest afflictions for the time being removed. So such Arahants in their mind, in next life onward, the remainder of the karma are seen in their mind, that there is still residue of karma in their mind. Even though they do not have affliction, Coming force is observed with them, verse number 46, line 3 and 4. So they still have the coming force to be again born in the samsara is observed with them. Verse number 46, line 3 and 4. So in between we shall have tea and break. Offering mandala in gratitude of the teachings. Ge ju xie me bo zhong ri ro li nian de gian bo di fang ge xian bo mi bo wai zhou ge nan da xi xie bo zhou yi dan gu ro an zhou ni ya da ya mi. Blessing and offering of the tea. Sami Jaba Yinde Sami Abe Gede Sami Sami Chala Techen Nanda Shin Yangi Ja Nanda Shin Sheba. Let's so push them now. That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's right.
If one becomes liberated by abandoning affliction, verse 41 and 2, through the path of realizing the impermanence of for 16 as for truth, if you have got rid of the manifest affliction, if you become liberated from samsara, then that would mean at that time immediately you would become arahant. But still, that to be asserted to be arahant would not be possible. It can't be asserted because such a person who had removed the manifest affliction in that person's mind, there is the force of the karmic forces to be reborn in next life. There are many such karmic forces still in that person's mind. This is what one side puts to the other part. So then in response, the third is refuting the rejoinder to that there is the karmic force. Then verse number 47, line 1 and 2, it's certain not just for now, there's no appropriating craving. Unless the karma is exhausted, that karma to be born in next rebirth, if there is such a karma present, that very karmas to be able to produce result, that very substantial cause which produces the result, and the factor which is the craving among the 12 depending, it is the craving. So that is, there's no appropriating craving. So the other side, that through the path of this 16 aspect, the 4 true, that arahant, that although there's karmic force observed, but for that karma to be ripened, there's no craving that would otherwise ripen the karma. If that is the qualm or the argument others are put, then the response is verse 47, line 3 and 4. Although this craving is not afflictive, why just as totally ignored, it's not present generally. What you accept to be arahant, that person who through the path of the impermanence of 416 aspect and has abandoned the manifest affliction with that, although it is not afflictive as explained in the Abhidharma, but still in the Abhidharma for the ignorant there are two types, afflicted, non-afflicted. Likewise with the craving, there is one craving that is afflicted and there's another that is not afflictive craving.
Why wouldn't there be? Although this craving is not afflicted, why? Just as totally ignorant, it's not present. Just as with the ignorance, it has two kinds that is explained in Abhidhamma. Why wouldn't there as well be two types of craving? That the ignorance, which is the that ignorance, which is afflictions or the negative emotion, that it is not of the afflicted kind, explained in the Abhidhamma. Why wouldn't this apply the same to the craving being of the two types, the afflictive and non-afflictive craving? Therefore, the person being grasped as independent, permanent single, although that grasping is abandoned, but the grasping that the person is existing by its own entity, why wouldn't there be that view on the transitory collection? So what is earlier mentioned, that person who had got rid of the manifest afflictions, that Arahant, that there has a view on transitory collection and the craving that is still would be there, that there's no certainty that they have not been removed. So what is here explained in the Abhidharma with the ignorance and the appropriating and the craving, there's two types of these mentioned in Abhidharma, but in our system, in the 12 links, the craving, we do not accept that is non-afflictive craving. All craving are afflictive. So next is so affected by feeling is craving. Verse 48. Out of feeling there is the craving. So feelings give rise to craving. Craving is present in them as well. So in such Arahant, what is explained the Arahant in the Abhidharma, these Arahant have feeling, and because of having feeling, therefore that very with regards to the ignorance of grasping and the truly existent, they would be stimulated. So the verse 48, please correct the English verse 48, the second line, instead of craving, please read as feeling. Feeling is present in them as well. So because of the presence of the true grasping, out of that there's a feeling, out of that there is the craving, and out of craving there is the joining to next rebirth. This would be possible. Anyone with mind, with a focused object, with craving remain in them. That means in some, with regards to the path of the emptiness, there's one way we'll go like that. With regards to the path of the only path to be asserting to be liberated by having got rid of the manifest affliction, but they still would have craving and so forth in such Arahant manner. Then the fourth is showing that as such, even those aspiring near liberation need to meditate emptiness. So this was last verse 49. With the mind bereft of emptiness, realization, manifest affliction ceased would again arise, just as recognition as absorption. As such, one has to meditate on emptiness. Those who want to liberation, why they need to meditate on emptiness is because of the reason that the mind that is bereft of emptiness realization, through that path of the mind bereft of the emptiness realization, through that, without depending on the realization emptiness, but just being got rid of the manifest affliction, merely with that, not getting rid of the root of the affliction. Therefore, the afflictions and the disturbing emotions would again arise, like the recognition as absorption. As such, one has to meditate on emptiness with the form and formless realm by achieving their state of mind, formless realm, without any sense of recognition. Recognition as absorption, this being attained, not through the recognition as absorption. This is among the 8 states of the meditation states, and the formless states is one of the 8 mental states in the formless and so forth. So where during such state of mind, the afflictions which are manifest, become cease for the time being, but later when they meet with the factor, these afflictions, and because of the recognitionless absorption declining, then the afflictions would again arise. So during the time of the recognitionless absorption, there's no manifest affliction. Likewise, through the earlier part of this 16 aspect for truth, that is the same approach. Therefore, there's nothing to rely upon on that. And then earlier, all the Buddha's teaching are what is permitted in the Vinaya, what is not contradictory to the sutras, what is not contradictory to the Abhidharma. If these are what you consider to be the genuine words of Buddha by the standard of these three measures, then most of the great vehicle teachings and those you would be similar to what you accept to Buddha's teachings. Wouldn't that be the same? Therefore, why most of the great vehicle sutras will show the three trainings? Why wouldn't you accept that as Buddha's teaching? Why wouldn't you accept them as the genuine words of Buddha? Verse number 51, if in not understanding a single sutra all are to be folded, then why wouldn't by similar sutras all be accepted as taught by the victorious one? This is another question. What you have defined as the genuine words of the Buddha, that if it is not understood, if in not understanding a single sutra among the many sutras of discourse of Buddha, that is to be engaged into sutra that is permitted in the Vinaya and that is not contradictory to Abhidharma among the, if there's a single great vehicle sutra that to fulfill those, by taking that as single sutra, if you dismiss all other great vehicle teaching, then why wouldn't by similar sutra all be accepted as taught by the victorious one? Because of one sutra that is complete with the criteria being complete, why wouldn't you accept the other sutras to be of the same? This is similar similarity to the both among the great vehicle sutras. There are many types of sutras in great vehicle collection or category of the sutras. Among those category of great vehicle sutras, some we are considered as not Buddha's word because they do not fulfill the three criteria. Then there are other, because of that, if you also dismiss other great vehicle teachings, then why wouldn't the same apply to you? Then one single section of the sutra fulfill the validity of Buddha's words, then the others would consider that if one being incomplete, you can dismiss others. Why wouldn't you apply one sutra being complete that would fulfill by the same measure that all other sutras would be also same? The next verse, that's verse 52, that the speech not Pratama but death by Mahakashyapa and so on, it's not understood by you. So who would determine is not to be regarded as Buddha's word. So with this, where's the commentary by the commentators are different. In the Indian commentaries, there are a variety of explanations given, different explanations. In the Tibetan commentator, there's also variation in the explanation. There's not much of the difference. This is what the refuting what the other side is saying, what your side is saying. In Gyuto Rinpoche's commentary, according to the Gyuto Rinpoche's commentary, in terms of it seems like this is what the other side brings to as an argument. What the meaning says is this verse 52. The 100,000 Perfect Wisdom Sutra and the three versions of Perfect Wisdom Sutra, if these are the genuine words of Buddha, then the great hearer Mahakashyapa also they should understand the meaning of the Buddha's mother Perfect Wisdom discourses. But great hearers like the Mahakashyapa have not understood the meaning of the Buddha's Mother Sutra on the perfect wisdom, that being not understood, then if you dismiss on that basis, you dismiss the perfect wisdom Mother Sutra not the Buddha's word, it's not understood by you, so who would determine it's not to be regarded as Buddha's words, verse 52. Very profound meaning, that because you have not understood this profound meaning, then you consider that to be not a Buddha's word. Why? That would be the reason to be valid. What is asked to one, you put back the same question back in the similarity of the reason. Verse 52, that speech not fathom of it, that by a Mahakashyapa and so forth. Or the speech regarding the discourse, the Great Mother discourses, any of these discourses, Mahakashyapa and other Arahants, their meaning, they did not understand the meaning of this profound Mother Perfect Wisdom discourse by the Buddha. That is not understood by you, so who would determine it's not to be regarded as Buddha's words? You, the one who brings the argument among whom you regard to be the Mahakashyapa and so forth. There's various ways of explaining this, but what you do not understand and then on that basis, if you do not accept as Buddha's word, this would not be true. That would not stand to be true. In the Bodhisattvacarya-avatas, these in commentaries mentioned these three verses is mentioned to be not the actual verses of Shantideva, but later by the scribe and so forth. It had somehow got inserted. Prachet means polluted. From the verse number 50 to the verse 52, these three verses are described as not the actual wording on the verses of the Bodhisattvacarya-avatara. They are not part of the actual text, and they are not the words of the Shantideva. This is what Bodhisattvacarya-avatara says, that these are not the words of the Shantideva. The reason why there are three reasons, but the first reason is that the outlines are all mixed up. That these three verses show the reasoning to establish great vehicle as the genuine words of the Buddha. If that is the case, then this should have come earlier. Here's the verse number 44. It should have come. Regarding word, there are debates with raisers, and also regarding other words where they are to be discarded. Verse 44. But that part is the verse concerning the establishment of great vehicle teaching as the Buddha's word. So it should come under there, and thereafter instead we have the word that at verse 45 and so forth, showing that without realizing wisdom, Arhat state would not attain. This arrangement, the verses in the outline would be not. Where then the second fallacy is the verse 43 and 43. They're redundant. The meaning of what is in these verses are redundantly again repeated, and the third fallacy is the verse which is the verse number 52, the Mahakashyapa and so forth, that they do not understand. This is not right to be saying about Mahakashyapa. Therefore, these three verses are not the actual words of the Shantideva. These are, but in all the Sanskrit manuscript, we find all these three verses completely found. And all the manuscript translated into Tibetan, and when we did the manuscript comparison, they are also found male. And the Gyuto's commentary also have these three verses, but with regards to the outline, as the Bodhisattvacarya-avatara has pointed out, that this part should have come under earlier verse 44 outline of establishing great vehicle as the genuine words of the Buddha. So I'm not sure how these have come about. Perhaps they are not the words of the Shantideva. They might have come later, put into the part of the text. But anyway, the word meaning is as I have just been explained. Verse number 52, that is, please not fathom of its depth by Mahakashyapa and so on. With regard to that, some, if you do not consider that to be the other side's assertion, then with regards to the Shantideva's view is that even the Arahant or the superior of the hearers of Pratyeka Buddha need to realize the wisdom, subness of the phenomena. Therefore, Mahakashyapa would not be right to be saying this part in the verse 52. In the chapter 9, many of the parts of chapter 9, if you do not look into the commentary, you would not be able to, it would be very difficult to sort out which part is the word of the argument, the other side putting argument, which part is the response. Therefore, if you're going to study very carefully, it is very important to look into any of the reliable commentaries. And here, what I've mentioned is just saying once, perhaps a little bit difficult, I think, for you to get a clear idea about what these are saying just by one-time explanation. And then the second part is the wisdom realizing emptiness. Of the known is the part of non-abiding nirvana. Wisdom established the wisdom realizing emptiness as a part of non-abiding nirvana. That is non-abiding nirvana being the result of the great vehicle path. But this is being established with verse number 53. The verse number 53. For the welfare of those suffering by ignorance, prayer bodhisattvas have become liberated from the extremes of attachment, fear, yet by compassion they stay in samsara. This is the result of realizing emptiness. Due to ignorance and accumulating non-virtuous actions, and through that the resultant sufferings that is being experienced for their welfare of those sentient beings in such a state. That is first line, for the welfare of those suffering by ignorance. Their cause is the ignorance, and through that the actions or karma are created, and through that sufferings are being experienced for such sentient beings of that nature for their welfare. The ordinary beings and the hearers were attached to the samsara, were attached to the mundane existence of samsara, and so such attachment or desire and the fear of being fearful of samsaric suffering, to be liberated from these two extremes. So the attachment, like in the attachment, fear is similar to the line that through knowledge one does not remain in the extreme of the one and so forth. So through one remains in samsara for the welfare of sentient beings, but still the bodhisattva is freed of the attachment and fear of samsara. And while being in samsara, what happens in samsara, the sufferings, to be liberated from this fear. The hearers and solitary realizers were afraid of samsara. They then fall into the extreme of nirvana, and so both being due to compassion, being in samsara, to be training on bodhisattva practices, that to be able to do so, how that becomes possible for a bodhisattva is is because of wisdom realizing emptiness. It's the result of wisdom realizing emptiness. That is the result of the realizing emptiness. Verse 53, last line, page 29, first text. So the suffering by ignorance refers to sentient beings. So the welfare of these sentient beings, the ordinary beings who are very much attached to the pleasure of the samsara, and then are attached to the samsara, and also not like that, nor like the hearers and solitary realizers who are attached to the peace of the nirvana, but rather bodhisattva not falling into the two extremes of the samsara and nirvanic pleasure, but rather by not being attached without fear, remaining in samsara. For a bodhisattva to do so is because of the cause of real, by meditating on the path of realizing emptiness. So that is how it's said. So this so far. So those who are interested in liberation, therefore those seeking liberation, also verse 54, the first part is to end to be liberated from the first two subheading have been finished. Now we're on the next subheading, as such, instructing that it is right that those seeking liberation meditate on emptiness. There are those of both vehicles, the hearers aspiring to attain the liberation of the hearer's path, and bodhisattva aspiring to attain enlightenment. So for them, verse number 54, thus it's not feasible to be disproving towards emptiness as such without being doubtful. Meditate on emptiness. Verse 54, therefore, with the wisdom realizing emptiness towards that, to be refuting that, and the reasoning to refute that are not right. Therefore, so without doubt, with regard to meditating on emptiness, whether there will be result or not, whether there will be benefit or not, such a doubt should not be there. And without a doubt, you should meditate on emptiness. Verse 54, this is under that subheading as such, instructing that it is right that those seeking liberation meditate on emptiness. Why that is so is because realizing emptiness, you can't. It is impossible to attain liberation. Verse 55, the antidote for the afflictive obscuration omniscience is the wisdom realizing emptiness. How those aspiring omniscience soon wouldn't meditate on that. The afflictive obscuration, normally with afflictive obscuration and obscuration omniscience, with regards to these two, each of the Buddhist tenets present these two in their own unique ways. There are many variations in that, but because this text, Bodhisattvacarya-avatara, is according to the Prasangika Madhyamika, therefore this grasping at true existence becomes under the category of afflictive obscuration, whereas the obscuration omniscience is the imprint and the subtle seed and the appearing of the true existence of things are under the obscuration of omniscience. So these subtle obscurations are inclusive under the second category of obscuration of omniscience. So the antidote for the afflictive obscuration of omniscience is the wisdom realizing emptiness, the power realizing emptiness. Therefore, how those aspiring omniscience soon wouldn't, why and how they wouldn't meditate on emptiness. Verse 55. So then, this so far, the conclusion of that is summarization of meaning, top of the verse 56. What the other side says as a quorum argument is to be fearful of meaning of emptiness. I wouldn't meditate on that. If that is the argument, when the meaning of emptiness is explained, many people feel great fear. Why they feel great fear is with regards to the action, cause and effect, and the doer, action, and the object, act of doing, all the thing, everything is not existent at all. There's no cause and effect, presentation, and conventional nominal functioning of things. The very word emptiness, that things do not exist from their own part, that things do not exist by their own characteristics, that things do not exist truly. They're all nominally, even they are being negated, being refuted when emptiness is explained. So because of that, then all conventional phenomena, even nominally, they cannot be presented. This is how they feel. Not being able to present or still see the validity of nominal phenomena, therefore there arises great fear in them. For those not fearful emptiness, why this is mentioned again and again is because of such not only there for some beginner or some beginners when they gain understanding emptiness, that there's the actual incident in the past that they failed fear. That if they have good understanding of emptiness, not to talk about wisdom reason from a meditation, but through the wisdom reason, through learning, when there's understanding of emptiness, then there's the incident in the past where some people have felt great fear. So for them, this is what is being mentioned, verse 56. While there arises fear towards something that produces suffering, how could there arise fear towards emptiness, that which eliminates suffering? This is quite clear. With regard to fear, one should be fearful. Something that is a cause producing suffering, for that you should feel fearful. Anything that brings you as a result as a suffering, if that thing is a cause for that, then you should be fearful of that thing. But whereas emptiness is that of which meaning if you meditate on emptiness meaning, it becomes a means to eliminate all suffering. Why would then you be so fearful of emptiness? And also, and the next verse 57, if there were any self, there would be fear at anything. So here, first is verse 56 is that it's not right to fear, for there's no cause to fear. Then the second, verse 57, is that there's no truly existent self that is to be feeling afraid. So there's no right to fear. For with regard to fear, to be fearing is through the innate grasping oneself, to be regarding as independently existing and appears, and so you grasp it. So therefore there's a basis for fearing or innate ego grasping. 57, verse 57, if there were any self, there would be fear at anything. If as to innate ego grasping if there is a self that exists from its own power, if that is possible, then the very cause of the fear would be there. But since any self is non-existent, so who is that would be afraid? So self is not there at all. So who would be afraid? To whom should be one fearing? All are not truly existing from their own self. So the person who is fearing that he is grasped by your inward ego grasping, it is not there as mere name and imputed to that self. You're fearful, so that's a different case. That is the summarization for this so far. The two outlines have been completed. That to attain mere liberation, first the present of truth. So it is telling that even for someone wanting to attain mere liberation, the necessary to realize emptiness, and third, explaining in detail the establishing of emptiness of these three. The presentation of two truths had been completed. Then the second verse, page 52, middle part, establishing that even for someone wanting to mere liberation, it is necessary to realize emptiness. This had many subheadings which have all been completed. Then the third subheading is in the beginning when we first had the outline presented out, laid out. Then where it has come about from. That is the third. Explaining extensively the reasonings establishing emptiness, page 53 of the second text outlines. The ninth chapter, the chapter on perfection of wisdom, when the first outlines are laid out, those showing that those wanting to attain liberation need to generate wisdom, realizing such. That was the first. And the second was the means of generating wisdom, realizing such. Page 49, top part. And the third, as such, instruction to start at generating that wisdom. That was the third heading, of which the first three main outlines, we had that on page 49, text 2, at the beginning, top part. Then thereafter, there are the subdivisions and the headings. Then showing that those wanting to generate wisdom, realizing suchness, the need to generate wisdom, realizing suchness. And then second is the means of generating wisdom, realizing self-suchness. The means of generating wisdom, realizing suchness. This has three subparts. First is presentation of two truths that hasn't completed. Second is establishing that even for someone wanting to attain mere liberation, it is necessary to realize emptiness. That part has been completed. Now we're on the third part, explaining extensively the reasoning, establishing emptiness. And now with that part as well, there are two subparts. The reasoning establishing the subnessence of person, and reasoning establishing subnessence of the phenomena. And the first has a three-part, page 53, middle part downward, refuting innate ego grasping, object grasping. Second, refuting conceptual self. Third, for a second, argument against negation. The explain extensively the reasoning establishing selflessness of the person as three parts. First is refuting innate ego grasping, object grasping, refuting conceptual self. For second, argument against the negation, where it has come about. It has come from the reasoning establishing the selflessness of the person. So the main part where that comes from, the earlier establishing the selfless of the person and establishing the selfless of the phenomena. And the first has these three subparts: refuting innate ego grasping, object grasping, refuting conceptual self, and for second argument, that is how the outline has come about. The first is refuting innate ego grasping, object grasping. With any grasping, there is the innate and the conceptualized, the way to divide into these two, the grasping of two kinds. Without mind doing examination, whether it is not, how it is, so and so forth, not doing any examination. With the innate mind, which is not changed, but how it is done naturally in our mind, innate mind, the form and so forth, phenomena, how they appear and how we grasp, and then that is called the innate grasping. That is innate, and the imputed or conceptualized is how we grasp as self by innate grasping. This is from beginning to birth. We have habituated the grasping at the self of person and of phenomena. This is there. We do not think aware that I'm grasping at self. There is no saying to yourself that I'm grasping at self of person. And there's no such awareness, and there's no ability to express in such a grasping is called the innate ego grasping. With regard to conceptualizing, imputed ego grasping is whether, when there's a question whether self exists or not, and to that question when we examine with regard to conceptualized or imputed grasping, it does not have to be strongly influenced by tenet or philosophical thinking. Even with the ordinary examination, if you do so, whether there's a self or not, when you have done the examination, after you decide, oh, there is a self, that it is this way it exists, if there's no self, it's not right, therefore you are able to say self, you are able to say it exists. In your mind, you're also able to apply some reasoning that it exists. So that is called conceptualized or imputed self-grasping. So the conceptual ego-grasping is more in those whose mind have influenced by philosophy or tenets, whether they are the non-Buddhist or they are Buddhist, in the text on the philosophical views and so forth. Tenet, those who assert a self to be truly existent, they present their reasoning, they also identify as self. So such a person who thinks in such a way, in that person's mind, both the innate ego grasping and the concept ego grasping, both are like water placed or water mixed, blended, inseparable. But the way manner of grasping and manner of refuting that and how to challenge, they are separate and different. Therefore, here I were to say briefly, with regards to the conceptualized ego grasping is through reason, to be able to think and to be able to say it exists, doesn't exist, and so forth. And unlike that, the grasping that has no such reasoning but naturally occurs to one's mind, that is innate ego grasping, that will be okay to show. And first is the refuting of the innate ego grasping. The innate ego grasping's object of grasping as a way to refute that, the variety of reasoning to refute that. There are many reasonings, variety of reasoning. Among those many varieties of reasoning, here what is presented are by searching for the self, and through that whether it is findable or not, that is the way to look. And for that first, with regard to the innate ego grasping as self, the object, how it then grasps at it, and to know that meaning that is important, as would come later. Without touching the object conceptualized, one would not know its non-existence. So what is when the self is searched for? Verse number 58 is about teeth, hairs, nails, and not the self, and so forth. When you search for them, they are not. That's somehow it is what is being talked about. It is not that it is not. That very self, how it appears to one's grasping at it by one, that is the identification of the object to be refuted. And the person who search for the view, among their activities, most important and most difficult is the identification of the object to be refuted, the objectification. If you identify the object indicated, the reasoning to refute that, there are countless reasoning in many of the texts. They are the separate. In fundamental wisdom, reasonings are applied through countless variety of reasoning, and through that the object refuted is object negation refuted. And some texts, the refutation is done by applying one or two reasonings. When we do not examine, when we do not analyze in natural state one's mind and yourself, you consider to be one the same. This is what is habituated in our minds. For example, if there's a person named Kalden, I am Kalden, I am Tom. So that name Kalden, or the sound, you think that is you, that is your name, and you are the very referent. There's no such thought that is like one doesn't think that one is separate from that So, suddenly when looking, you think I am called, and when other people address you as called, and you think that I'm being called, I'm here, that I'm here. That very basis of imputation, the aggregate and the conceptual thought that the impure one does not think of all that one thinks there is a solid. When someone says, Kaldin, come here, you say yes. You think as if there's a so tight and solid that it doesn't depend on anything, that very tightly held Kaldin, that is there. So such a the way solid about how it appears as a person, that is called self. When identity, when you look for that self-identity, then the manner of identifying is, or manner of searching is, by searching in the parts of the body, and other than that, and here in the present text, by looking into many parts of the body. These are mentioned in great detail. Verse 58, teeth, that is part of your mouth, inside the hairs on your, the hairs and the eyes, so forth, and nails of the hands and of the feet. These are not the self. Generally, parts of the body among them, the teeth, hair, and the nails are considered to be not within the realm of the person's mind. The hair also is part of the body that is not within the realm of the mind, and the teeth also is not inclusive to the mind of the person, and the nail too is not inclusive to the mind of the body. But because they are very much connected to the mind, and when there's a connection, there is a feeling. Apart from that, when the hair is cut with a scissors, there's no pain and so forth. When the hair is pulled, then there's a pain, because the flesh is inclusive to the realm of the mind. There, the pain is with the flesh, therefore you feel the pain with the hair being pulled. Nails are not so, which each of them, if you look for the sound. If you are called, is it the hair, is it the nail? These are my teeth, these are my hair, these are my nails. When you say that, then as if you are like the owner, that you feel it is separate as owner of these things. That very separate is not profound later, but suddenly when you look at it, it feels as if it is separate from these parts of the body. The self is not the bones and blood. The bones is part of the body, the skeleton part, and blood. This is what normally that parades throughout the body, nor snort that comes out from your nostrils, nor bile. Part of the body is through that makes the food to digest very there, and which produces this mucus and so forth, and the lymph and the nor pus and the urine and so forth. And then the pus, the lymph is of that kind, and the pus is those that becomes ripened, and which is a wet and moist, not that part. The self is not the fats, nor sweat, not the fats of the body, nor the sweat, not the sweat that you sweat, nor lungs and livers of the self. The lungs and livers, these are the organs in the body, they are also not the self. The other innards too are not the self. Apart from the lungs and livers, other innards of the body, there is the kidney, there is the heart, and there are many other organs. They are also not the self. The self is not feces nor urine. Feces is the excreta, and urine in the Tibetan Chin is the watery substance that you urinate. They are not the self. So unclean part, nor flesh and skin, they are not the self. The flesh is not the self, skin is not the self, the heat is not the self, and the wind, the heat in the body is not the self, and the wind in the body is not the self. The wind is the very breathing in and out, the breath, and the holes are not the self. In all aspects, the six consciousnesses too are not the self. Verse 60, dependent on the six senses. There are the six consciousness: eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, the body consciousness. These consciousnesses are not the self. And the part of the body, these are all negated to be the self. Part of the body, they are negated to be the self. When you look at these, then all of not the self. This is very easily understood. How you're able to understand, you think, oh, these are mine, because you hold them as your, in your mind, the very way the mind grasps it. There is grasping as mine. What the teeth are. There's no grasping or thinking that teeth is you, the hair is you. Therefore, in the innate ego-grasping, this is not how it happens. All of these are generally, they are the basis for the imputation of the person, that being so. But on the basis of the imputation, the conceived thought that imputes, if you do not know how the self exists, then you don't need to search for that which is searched for. It would not be found, but still you're able to present the validity of things functioning. But here, because we see, apparently, assume things to be solid and to be found able, then when these are to be searched for, you do not find. The six consciousness too are not the self. Where 16 outlines. So when these are all refuted one after another, then the whole part is the vacuum part in the body, and also it refers to the space. So it's also called the whole space. So this is how it is. So these are, what these show is the manner of looking for what is that it is imputed through the reasoning of the seventh part of the analogy of the chariot. So when these are not analyzed and examined, that very eyes to be assumed as independent, when you look for where it is, it may seem, and it needs to be found, because in our way of grasping by our mind, you assume it is there, that I is certainly there, but when it is searched for, it is not found by anyone. So because it is not found, then so the self apart from the aggregate, or as the one listed earlier, or the form aggregate and the karmic formation aggregate and so on, 5 aggregates. Apart from that, there is independent self. That also is not to be found. When if the self is not in that fashion, then where is that self? It is not found. It is not findable. So this is how it is. On the collection of aggregates and the part of the aggregates within these 3 verses, verse 58 and so forth, they are part of the body, part of the aggregate. If they are all put together and as one, if you look for self, that is not also there to be found. Therefore, the person, the basis which is to be imputed as that person to be existing from its own part, to be existing by its own characteristic, if it is to be existing in that manner, then definitely when searched for, it should be findable. This is the negating, refuting the innate ego-grasping, object of grasping. This much is mentioned. Then second is refuting a conceptualized self. This part has generally with regards to the conceptualized grasping of the self. There are many tenets, and here specifically 2 non-Buddhist tenets are listed: the Samkhya, the enumeration, and the Visheshka. Because among the many non-Buddhist philosophical schools, it is like the representative, the refuting Samkhya, So the self being asserted as a consciousness is the Samkhya school, and the self being asserted as the inanimate thing is the non-Buddhist school called Vaisheshika. Normally, among all tenets that emerged in India, if you are to categorize all of them, then you can have them divided into two: those who assert self and those who do not assert a self. And those who do not assert self, there are only two Buddhists and the Lokayatayas, and whether you consider the 6 groups of non-Buddhist tenet or the 5 group non-Buddhist tenet, there's no other than the Buddhist and the Lokayataya tenet of non-Buddhists who do not assert a self. All other Indian classical tenets asserted a self. When there is the differentiation between those who accept creation and those who do not accept it, then the Jain Nirganta and the Lokayataya and Buddhists are those who do not accept creator, and the other all accept creator. Then with the Lokayataya, there were 2 tribes in the past: the archaic, the ancient, and the more later time. But anyway, these days you are not reformed. But those who do not accept creator are the Nirganta of the Jain and the non-residual Lokayataya and the Buddhists. Only these 3 tenets. So with regards to refuting the conceptualized self, there is the Samkhya and Vaisheshika, mainly these 2. The Samkhya assert the self to be a consciousness. When they are refuted, then it seems that we must know what Samkhya schools are searching about. In terms of time, we cannot go into those details. Rather, whatever is in the verses, it is better if we just go through what is in the verses with the Samkhya school. Well, first, with the refuting the Samkhya school, there's 2: the actual refutation and refuting the rejoinder to the there. The actual refutation is verse 61. With regard to generally those non-Buddhists who assert self, what is normally known is mainly the tenet called the Sankhya Inimerist, and the way they assert self, they say there is no eater and so forth. Chandrakirti says in the 6th chapter that because of the description of the self being the eater, enjoying so forth, that there are many such systems occurring because of the with this permanent self and independent self being asserted by, that is the eater, that is the permanent thing, that is not enjoyer, such a self which is asserted by the Sankhya school. There is a slight difference. Apart from that, therefore, slight difference from that, they become separate form amongst the non-Buddhist tenets, the Triptika. So Chandrakirti says that anyway, what the Sankhya school of the tenets assert is that the main tenet is when they assert there are 25 things of knowledge, and among the 25 things of knowledge, what is the self is in the aspect of a consciousness. They assert that to be so. The personal knowledge and the experience and their presentation, such a consciousness. If verse number 61, if sound, the consciousness being a permanent, the consciousness being would retain sound at all times. So, if there were no objects to know, what knows by what would be called consciousness? The sound and the consciousness that perceives sound, both of them is part of the consciousness being. So the sound is among the 24 items, the 5 mere. So they assert that the consciousness being is a permanent, that it is being permanent. It also It has the ability to function. Therefore, in their terminology of a permanent thing, that is how they, with other non-Buddhists, and they use the same concept. Whereas the Buddhist and other later philosophical schools would see if something is permanent, it cannot be functioning thing. It's contradictory. Therefore, here's the permanent thing, that it is permanent, but it is still a functioning thing. This is what the other side, Samdhong assertion about the consciousness being is. Verse 56 to 1. Such a consciousness being, such consciousness being of when it enjoys the five mere things. So that self which is conscious being, this is what they assert, this such a self which is conscious being when it enjoys the sounds, form, sound, and so forth. Such being is a permanent thing. So such a is conceptualized, fabricated self. What question is being put to them is, if sound and consciousness are permanent, the consciousness being would retain sound at all times. If sound that is being listened to by the consciousness being, if that consciousness being, it and sound, both of them, if they are permanent, if both these are permanent, then all the time the conscious being should retain sound at all. For that conscious being that experiences the sound, if it is a permanent, then here generally what we need to perhaps we may get confused, but among the non-Buddhists, with regards to the sound and the sound perceiver, both are considered permanent. Then there are some who consider sound to be permanent and the sound perceiver not to be permanent, and others who consider sound perceiver to be permanent and sound not permanent. So there are many, but here Samdhong school or tenet assert both sound and sound perceiver to be permanent. For the sound and the ear consciousness, they listen to the sound. If they are permanent, then at all times that perceiver of the sound should perceive or retain sound. But sound is something that occasionally occurs. It is not there all the time. It is not a thing that is there all the time. For example, if you ring a gong, then when the stick is hit to the gong, then there's a sound, and after a while the sound fades. So if there were no object, no what knows, if there's no sound that remains permanent all the time there, and that being not there. So this is Samkhya has to accept, because it is not to be viewed actually it is the same. But when they assert permanent, they say it sound is the attribute of the space, that the sound is there in the dormant, non-manifest. That is their explanation, but we are not going to that. If there were no object to know, what knows? If the consciousness that perceives the sound, if that sound is not there, then what would that consciousness become a consciousness? What would that consciousness become a consciousness? How? What it would perceive? By what would be called consciousness? The time the ear consciousness retaining sound, when it doesn't hear sound at the time, when it's not listening to sound, then that consciousness, how could there be such a consciousness retaining sound? If there were no object to know, then there will be no subjective consciousness. So by what would be called consciousness if there were no object to know? What knows? When there's no object to know, then what the consciousness sees, what that consciousness perceives, how it could be called as consciousness, then what would be the reason it would still be called as consciousness? This is the question put back to them. If it's a consciousness without a knowable object, verse 62, the threshold without a tree too would be conscious. If there were no object to know, then our subject still can be considered to be consciousness. Then although there will be no object, the consciousness can still be presented. Then the threshold would be that a tree too would be consciousness, a tree, a stump, or just a part of the tree. They would also have to be considered as a consciousness. Verse number 62. Why that is so is, why wouldn't they become consciousness? that a tree too is consciousness as such, without a knowable object close by, certainly there would be no consciousness. The object to be known, if that object is not nearby, if that object is not nearby, then the consciousness that perceived that would not be there. Certainly there would be no consciousness. So this is, as the fallacy put back to them. Then perhaps hereafter we might have to stop here. It would be okay to stop here. In brief, please be kind enough to put into practice whatever has been explained. Dedication prayers to care about the offering mandala in gratitude of the teachings. Lumbering prayer, so the transmission and the live streaming board will stop here.